Welcome to the Building Texas Business Podcast, where we share stories of leadership, innovation, and success from business leaders who know what it takes to build great organizations. Building Texas Business is brought to you by Boyer Miller, providing counsel beyond expectations. Learn more about how Boyer Miller helps businesses navigate opportunity and growth with clarity and confidence at boyermiller.com. Now, here's your host, Chris Hanslik.
Welcome to Building Texas Business. We're celebrating our 100th episode with a live recording. We couldn't have done it without you, our listeners. So thank you for being a part of this journey. Joining us today are South Texas College of Law Houston Dean Reynaldo Valencia and South Texas alum and University Land CEO Billy Murphy, here to share their insights on leadership, education, and the future of law and business in Texas. This year, South Texas College of Law Houston is celebrating its 100th anniversary. As Houston's oldest law school, it has shaped generations of legal and business leaders, leaving a lasting impact on our community and the state. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
I want to welcome you to what we call BTB Live, a live recording of our podcast, which is called Building Texas Business. Tonight's a special night because not only do we have special guests, but we're celebrating the 100th episode of our podcast, which never thought we might get here, but we did because we have great listeners and great guests and a great group of followers that promote this on social media for us. So really want to thank the two of you for taking the time, not just to be here, but be here live and in front of an audience. So I'm going to start by having each of the two guests here with me introduce themselves. Dean Valencia, you want to start?
Sure. My name is Ray Valencia. I'm the incoming president and dean of South Texas College of Law. I've been on the job 4 months.
So he knows everything. And then Billy?
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm Billy Murphy. I'm a graduate of South Texas College of Law. I also went to Texas Tech University, grew up in Houston, and work for University Lands, which is part of the UT system, where manage a great team of roughly 80-ish folks. And we're in the resource space, oil and gas, and minerals and surface.
Go a little deeper on University Lands to give the audience an idea of kind of what actually the business of University Lands is.
Sure. We get asked this question a lot. Most people, I can't see the audience because there's a lot of bright lights on us. Most people, probably it's not a household name. University Lands is the company inside of the higher education public institution, the University of Texas, that manages what's called the Permanent University Fund lands. So the Permanent University Fund was established in the late 1870s by the Constitution of the state of Texas to be a funder of public higher education in the state. It's 2.1 million acres in West Texas, the surface and the minerals, which is really unique anywhere, but certainly in Texas, most of the minerals have been severed from the surface. And we're in 19 counties. So what we do is steward these lands. We really function as a business that sits inside of higher education system to then fund higher education and healthcare. So the revenues that we generate through our work and through these lands fund 27 public higher education institutions inside the UT system and the Texas A&M system. So it's hospitals, it's schools, it's A&M. It uniquely has institutions that serve state functions. So Texas AgriLife and some of the functions there. So it's very unique in that this is the only state. It's really the only place in the whole world that has a higher education funding mechanism like this, and it's also like very Texan. So like funding your schools with West Texas land.
Yeah, I know. It's very Texan. It's a very well-kept secret, I would say. And Dean, on that note, a little bit more detail about the school for the audience. I know, being an alum as well, it's the oldest law school in Houston.
Yeah.
What else can you tell us about?
So just to add on to what Billy's saying, I actually am from Lubbock, so I know the area well,
Yes.
Texas Tech. I grew up in Lubbock, when I graduated law school, I decided to come back to Texas. And so I worked with Jones Day right out of law school. And then I decided to go into full-time teaching. So I went with St. Mary's, where I was for 21 years. And we used to look at South Texas as a comparable school and our competitor. So I knew a lot about South Texas just through that experience. And then after 21 years at St. Mary's, I went over to UIT Dallas College of Law, and I was helping them start up. And then I got asked to be the dean or to apply, and then ultimately was selected to be the dean at a school in Ohio, where I've been the most recent 5 years. But when this opportunity opened up, it was right time for me to come back to Texas. It was the right time for me and my sons to return. And then I got to learn a lot more about the school, and I was absolutely amazed. We are a YMCA school, and a lot of people don't know what that means. Back at the turn of the century, many schools were started in YMCAs as an opportunity for people who might not otherwise have the chance to go to law school. And they were founded primarily by full-time practicing lawyers. Capital Law School in Ohio, where I was most recently, was a YMCA school. In San Antonio, in St. Mary's, it was not a technical YMCA school, but it was founded about the same time in the same way. And it was founded in a fancy hotel now on the Riverwalk. But these schools ultimately started the opportunity for people who were perhaps working professionals, but they were schools of access. They were schools of opportunity. And then they developed full-time programs later on, and then they became night and full-time and things like that. Well, with South Texas, we started in 1923, so we recently had our centennial, and we have always had built into the DNA of the school the mission of access, opportunity, and providing opportunities for people who might not otherwise have the opportunity to go. We have had a lot of success in the area. I am impressed by how many alums we have. We are almost at 18,000 alums. We have about 8,000 here in Houston proper. The vast majority of the rest of them are in Texas. And we are currently at about 1,100 students, which is very large for a law school. Most law schools tend to be about 500 or less, unless you're one of the national schools. They might have a little bit more. So it's just been a really great opportunity to come and learn more about our clinical program, our advocacy program, and all these other success areas that we have.
That's great. Another thing that I think is a unique and a proud fact from school about School of Opportunity, the first class was 36 or 37
Yes.
people, 5 of which were women.
Yes.
In 1923. So, I mean, I don't think anybody would guess that in the trivia.
Exactly.
Right? You would think in that time there would be none.
Yes.
So it really goes to the core, the heart of what the school stood for from day one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that people talk a whole lot about now, it's like the authenticity of South Texas is that they've been doing it from day one.
Yeah.
They've been doing that from day one.
And by the way, you may be thinking, why are we talking about law school and 100th anniversaries? Because the law school, one, just celebrated its 100th anniversary. We thought, what a great tie-in. We have several alum in our firm. And the other thing that I think people don't think about is when you go get a law degree, you don't necessarily go become a lawyer. And you can, maybe it's business law, but maybe you just go into business. And so, Dean, from your experience, how does that law school education translate for someone that becomes a business leader in your experience?
Well, I'm actually still teaching. So I teach corporations. That's one of the courses I teach because I did work at Jones Day. I work primarily in corporate restructuring and corporate bankruptcy. And when I started teaching at St. Mary's, the dean gave me business associations as well. I was more used to on the bankruptcy side, getting everything when it all gone to heck. And then I had to learn how to set these things up and get them there. So I always try to talk to the students, many of the students when they come into corporations, which is, we have a menu of courses that you have to take in categories. So you may not necessarily have to take corporations, but you would have to take agency and partnership. Either way, a lot of students come in because they want to be litigators and they're like, I'm just having to take this course because I have to. One of the best things that happens is when you get a student who goes through and says, I'm really connecting with this and I'm really liking it. What are the opportunities that I can have in it? And I tell students, even if you never want to be a corporate lawyer per se, if you want to be a litigator, you got to figure out how the things you're going to sue work and how you get to the pockets of those who own them. And that's worth knowing. So I try to basically remind students that I've been teaching 36 years. So I say, look, take 10 lawyers and ask them if they're doing what they thought they were going to do. And about 8 of them will say no. And then take those same 10 lawyers and ask them if they like what they're doing. And about 8 of them will say yes. So leave yourself open, because even though you don't think you want to do business or don't have any interest in it at this point, leave the doors open. You never know where you're going. One of the things I like about transactional law, for me at least, I never got that fire in the belly by going to court and doing things like that. The last time I was in court was my housekeeper in my home in Dallas. Her husband.
I'm not sure where this is going, but go ahead.
Her husband had been diagnosed, sadly, with cancer, and they were told to prepare a will and do these things in the event he didn't make it through surgery, and he didn't. And so I had to go in, I did the will, and then I had to go in and probate it. And that was the last time I went to court, and I thought, if I die and never go inside another courtroom, I will be a happy person. Because and this was not a contested matter,
Right.
It was not a high stakes matter, it was not a large asset matter, it was a basic prove-up, but I just don't have that. So I think we have a good set of courses and programs, which I can talk about later. We have a transactional center, and we offer somewhat of a concentration where you can get a certificate in that area.
Building, so I know you started in private practice at a firm downtown here in Houston, and shortly after that got into really the private business world. How has the legal education translated to helping you be now a CEO of a very large organization? What are some of the lessons that you learned in law school that you feel like have kind of molded you for that?
Well, I frankly get that question a lot. From students, not just law students, but others who are it seems like it was a career change. I will say this, for me, it was a career change, but it was always the goal. I went to law school. I loved my time at South Texas. We can talk about kind of the lessons. It's such a strong advocacy school. And one of the things that does is put you in front of cameras and put you where you have a lot of folks, your colleagues or classmates at the time, kind of telling you what you're doing right and wrong. So you get comfortable sitting in front of folks and being critiqued. Those are great memories for me. You also have the chance to get into leadership positions. I was on the law review and got to do some neat things there that started to build the the confidence level of being a leader of an organization. But really, the goal for me was never to go out and be a lawyer long term. And I've told this story many times, and growing up in Houston in the 80s, really the only people that had any money in this town were the lawyers. All the oil and gas guys and real estate guys were all like bankrupt. And I looked around and saw, man, I had so many dads that were friends, my friends' dads, that they were such wonderful men. I respect them so much, and they seemed to do really well for their families. And unfortunately, though, I never saw them. I'd go to their house, they lived in a nice house, but I never saw the dad. And I kind of contrasted that with my dad, who was always around. He was a great dad growing up, but we lived a very nice lifestyle, but we couldn't, always take that family vacation that we might want to. And so in my mind, it kind of came together as, well, I need to be a lawyer, and then I can take that law degree and go do whatever I wanted. I really wanted to be in business. Okay. And I didn't have any lawyers in my family. So I just, this is like a 14-year-old, 15-year-old thinking this up in his mind. And, but it worked out. It was a very much a fish swimming up water the whole time. And by the way, you go to law school and there's not a single company that comes there to recruit. Right. It's all law related. And so my time, I worked at Bracewell, which is another just firm in town, but it was a great experience. And the opportunity that showed up for me a few years, 5-6 years in, was just perfect. It was a name that a lot of people know, King Ranch. It's a storied family. It's a storied piece of land in Texas. Really goes back to, might be the first or longest lasting corporation in the state of Texas. I mean, they incorporated in the 1930s, and the family bought Captain King bought the first land in 1853. But literally the first conversation we had were, we want you to do we want you on a business role over here.
Yeah.
And but very quickly, that law degree helped open doors there, which were amazing. And I never would expect that, but it just shows you the power of that law degree. It really, it sort of commands attention from a lot of folks. Not many people, I mean, a lot of the people in this room have a law degree, but if you went outside of this room, not many people do. And so I think at one point or another, I was the only lawyer there, even though I really wasn't practicing as a lawyer. But that gave me sort of access to come in and see other parts of the company and start to, again, expose me to more things as a young person, and back to leadership, just kind of start to create a style, so to speak.
Well, two of the things y'all have said, I believe to be true and I've witnessed, and that is the law degree creates a critical thinking side of your mind.
For sure. That
you use throughout your life, not just professionally, right? Just in general. And on the advocacy side, I tell people all the time, try it out. You don't have to like it, but what you do in life, no matter what you do, is you think on your feet.
Yep.
And advocacy teaches you to think on your feet and be articulate, to process something and then be able to respond. And I don't care what you're doing in any job, you're going to have to go into your boss's office or a client's office and think on your feet. And so I think you get that value.
Absolutely.
And it translates to every aspect of what you do. Even having kids, right? They're going to hit you with something. You got to think on your feet and give some kind of decent response.
That's usually at like 12:05 when they came in late.
That's right.
And all those advocacy classes of how to question somebody.
That's the cross-examining skills.
Right.
No, that's cross-examining. So that's right. So, Dean, what's unique, I think, about your career is your title's president and dean. You're running a business.
Yeah.
And I guess, if you think about what you've learned along the way, how has that transformed into your leadership style? How do you build a team around you? I know you're obviously new to South Texas, but any good leader has to build a team around them to be successful.
Yeah, when I was leaving my institution in Ohio, they had a very nice event for me as I was departing. And one of the things they kept saying that I had in terms of a strength, which I never really thought about, I'm glad that they thought I had it, was to just cut to the chase. And I attribute that to my law degree. Because there's a whole lot of noise. Any kind of problem comes through the dean's office. But a lot of times professors would be like, we need to go do this or do that. And I'm like, that's not the issue. The issue is this. And I would just be like, all that's noise. This is the real issue. And I was glad that after 5 years on the job, they thought that they kept saying, you were really, really good at always cutting through the noise and going to the main issue. So yeah, this school is different in that it is one of about 15 schools in the country that is a standalone law school. And so that means that we are not part of a university system. So we don't have a safety net of any sort whatsoever.
We're willing to talk, though, Billy, if there's any extra funds. Right, Dean? Right, Dean? Yeah.
We have an extraordinarily strong board of directors, one of whose member is right here. And that board and I are in charge of everything, which is a little daunting, a little scary. But we have about a $50 million operating budget, and we have 1,100 students. We have 51 faculty members and about 135 full-time staff and another 75 adjunct staff. And then on top of that, the 17,000 alums. So that's a lot of weight on my shoulders. Yeah. But I have had great experiences. I was associate dean at St. Mary's for the last 7 years. And I was the associate dean for administration and financing, handling the budgets, the buildings, the employee matters, our accreditation with the ABA and that. And that's what I did at UNT for 5. So for 12 years before I became a dean, I had that experience. And that really sharpens your skills to be able to cut through budgets, to be able to cut through personnel matters. And that's a manager, right? And so the president's side of this job is managing the institution, and then the dean's side is helping with the academic side in terms of the curriculum and the goals. So I just tell people, I was at an event this morning, I'm an educator at heart. I became a law professor at 25 years of age, right out of law school. While I was working at Jones Day, I was flying in and teaching at Texas Tech in Lubbock. They had invited me to join the faculty as an adjunct. So I have been doing this a long time, and it's but everything's new every day, just like in the practice of law. You never know what's going to roll through the door, or in your job, I'm sure too. And you just got to be able to handle it.
Yeah. So turn a little bit now, and Billy, I want to ask you. So given your job, there's a lot of tradition. Obviously, it's been around and what it stands for and what the mission of it is. How do you bridge kind of honoring that tradition, but pushing the organization forward? As Dean said, every day is different. Is there any kind of innovative things you're doing to try to make sure that you're staying on top, the organization staying on top of things to continue to do the returns to keep the institutions that you fund going?
Yeah, well, it's a big part of what we do is, may not call it innovation particularly, but if I'm on my soapbox with all of our the amazing folks that work at UL, I mentioned being creative a lot. I mentioned being curious a lot, and that really sort of ties into innovation and that curiosity. It's the idea that this land that we're in charge of, we need to be as smart as the people that are coming to us, and we get inbounds every day. Inbounds, just phones ringing. And sometimes somebody, a new person comes in and says, you need to just sit here for 3 months and not answer your phone, because you need to learn what we do before the floodgates open up. And, but really the idea, and I'll just give you an example. I mean, I've been here almost 4 years. This is, our bread and butter is oil and gas.
Right.
And so 10 years ago, there wasn't even horizontal drilling in the Permian Basin. 25 years ago, the UT system thought, really oil and gas is on such a decline that they created our sister company as a company called Utimco, which really manages the money that has been created from the land. And so they're the endowment manager. And this is very well documented that the UT system sort of said, we've got to get really good at managing this money because we're not really going to get any more from the land. I mean, it's dwindled down to hardly anything. And so, call that in the mid 90s is when that occurred. And the oil and gas revitalization through technology is just been nothing short of phenomenal.
Yeah.
And obviously it has a major economic impact for this city and this state, but really it's so much broader than that. I mean, the Permian Basin, where all of our land is, 10 years ago, people were talking about its sort of decline and finish, and in around that time is when folks, frankly, a lot smarter than me, that were regents at the time, and others that were involved sort of said, we've got to modernize this organization, because they saw the writing on the wall where the development's coming. And so you just start with that. I mean, in 10 years, what has gone on in that land is nothing short of amazing. And that's just the mineral side. On the surface side, probably a daily conversation going on in our organization and inbounds on, AI and data centers and large loads coming to West Texas, and how we're gonna be involved with that. And it's very challenging, just the multiple different uses of the land above and below, the priorities, what works well with each other, what doesn't. And we're making decisions daily that have these long tails to them that are 10, 20, 30, 50-year decisions. And so really, it is what we do, is evolve and have to try to stay ahead of the knowledge curve. And again, just going back to the idea, we're sitting up here with law degrees. I think it's, I am very happy to have the education that I have to help our organization with that law degree steer through these problems and challenges. And then, the great thing about an organization like that too, and really the oil and gas business, and I know many people in this city are in this business, it's a multidisciplinary business too. So I've really had the pleasure for many years now, once I got outside of the law firms, of working with folks that have technical degrees, have engineering degrees and geosciences degrees, and obviously the business degrees, and all of that, all these degrees collaborate together to actually try to look around that curve.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Very good. Dean, I know from being on the board, but there's a lot lately in innovation in education.
Yeah.
And changes rapidly in education. What are some of the things that are going on in South Texas and that you see kind of in the higher education world that are in technology, where technology is involved, where the school is trying to be innovative to stay up or ahead of that curve so that it can stay relevant as an independent law school?
So I like the question of, trying to honor tradition and also be ready to pivot to the future. I'll give you a quick example. So I had my investiture. The school does a wonderful investiture for the new deans. And we have a bagpipe tradition. We have a bagpiper who leads people in to graduation ceremony. So they told me that I would have a bagpiper at the investiture ceremony. And did I want to do anything? Well, you don't want to mess up tradition.
Right.
But on the other hand, they said you can put your own basic, character into the ceremony. So I said, can we have mariachis? Because I'm the first non-white dean, and I'm the first Latino dean of the law school. And so for the procession, we started out with the bagpiper and then honored the tradition. And then we switched to mariachis, and I walked in behind them. And people were just like, wow, what a switch. So you can't move too fast, I think, because you do want to honor tradition and have respect for it. But at the same time, you want to look towards the future. I think what we're seeing in legal education now, the best way that I can encapsulate it is I really think the number one key position I need to hire and to create, which we've never had, is an AI position.
Oh, yeah.
To help us think about how do we infuse AI into the curriculum, into the professor's courses, into the professor's scholarship, and the teaching in the classroom, and how do we help our students learn how to harness the energy and the ability of this AI without getting sanctioned, like many lawyers are getting sanctioned today for not using it correctly, but to train the 21st century lawyer, this is part of the life that they're going to lead. So that's a huge change. You all, when you went to law school, probably had a law library. I have to tell my students today, there's a thing in our building called a law library. It has books in it, but they don't open them and they don't go to it for the ways that we went to it. So everything's online now. The books are online in many instances. So a lot of my students will have just the e-copy of it. But we also have a changing bar exam, and we have a new bar exam that's going to be testing in a very different way than the bar exam that most of us took. It's going to be much more, less breadth and lots more depth. And it's trying to emulate what lawyers actually do on a day-to-day basis. And so instead of just testing you all those subject areas that we had. So we have to think about how we're going to get our students prepared for the next generation of practice in the ways that they practice. Kathy Burnett, who's our Dean of Clinical Education and Experiential Education, shared with me about a month in that I was in that all hearings in family court, for the most part in Harris County, are now on Zoom. They're not even going into the courts. And that's a different kind of practice than what we grew up with and what we were used to. So how to prepare for an online transaction or a court appearance. Those are the things we have to think about so that we are graduating our students prepared to take that on. When I was the money guy at both the schools where I was associate dean, I would tell the deans, like, look, my job as the money guy is to think about the money that our students are paying, which is a lot. And many of our students, if not most, borrow that money. And they will then pay it back over a long period of time with interest. If we are not doing the absolute best that we can to prepare them for their future and to give them the best resources and the best support around that, then shame on us. And so I love the fact that the board sees it that way. The board wants us to do strategic planning, which you were helping with, and we're going to figure out a 5-year plan that'll get us there.
Yeah. And talk a little bit.
Chris, can I interrupt real quick just to add to Dean's comment about AI? And so I'm going to take this from a couple of perspectives. One, from just from the CEO chair perspective, and also from having a son in college right now, and even in high school. And this is very much this is the calculator just showed up in the classroom. This is the internet. This is the internet just showed up. We really see it in our business as far as the demand that people, and so it's very much something that we're thinking about day to day, and we're working on and interacting with folks that are trying to build data centers to power AI. But if you're in an organization right now and the leader of your organization, like the dean just mentioned, is not thinking about AI, you're probably going the wrong direction. I mean, it is transformative, and it's going to happen so fast. And so I just think for as we sit here right now, and this is being reported, most people are basically using AI to maybe help them write an email or hey, I need to research this one thing. We are just right on the precipice in our kids. So the law students, very true. I really have a hard time when I hear that the professor or the teacher says no AI in our classroom,
Right.
Because that's sort of thinking, that's looking backwards, and I know it's hard to change curriculum, and it's hard to be on the front end of that. But the ones that are saying let's jump headfirst into this, and I'm going to be the one teaching that kid, the elementary or the high school or even the law student, to do it responsibly and how to harness this power, because it's going to change the way not just businesses, but the way we all interact.
Sure.
And solve problems, discover things. It's and its simplest function. Take every book ever written in the world, in the history of the world, and you have a source that can analyze every one of them for you in a second or two. And one of the things I've learned, and all the folks that I work with will enjoy this, but prompts. I mean, it's all about prompts.
It's all about prompts.
It's all about prompts and learning how to get from AI, and it's all about not trusting AI too.
That's where the human element has a role, right? I mean, among many, but it's in the test. I heard someone speak the other day and said, one of the things, because prompts are so important in how you do it, there could be a role, at least temporarily, for prompt engineers or something that really know that well. No different than there used to be kind of computer scientists that would help in the early days of computing, and now those jobs are gone because everyone learned how to do it. So we'll learn how to get better. But to your point, Billy, it's not going anywhere. So if you don't embrace it, you're going to get left behind. You got to find a way to embrace it. I know we have at the firm early on, and then you have to figure out what are the right guardrails around ethics and all the things, at least in law, but and in business, that you're making sure things are fact checked and you're not getting wrong answers. We've tested it early on, and I gave an example a couple of years ago. And the problem is with AI is it's fast and confident, not always right, but fast and confident. A lot of people interpret as being correct, and so you have to be careful.
It's a great thing. Students need to learn that.
Right.
They need to learn that they can't trust this. And you mentioned it, Dean, like there's been some really embarrassing legal, citing cases that don't exist in these things, and you could still.
And then those cases making it into the judge's opinion,
right?
Because the judge trusted it. Judges do not want to be pissed off. I mean, I was just going to say, I remember I had Jones Day's Dallas office in 1990. And I was the first class of lawyers that had our own desktop at our office, because we had moved away from the dictaphone and the secretaries typing everything in the word processing centers. So that was a real change as well. The fact that we would produce our own documents as lawyers was AI's completely light years past that.
For sure.
And I think these schools really, and I know you're thinking about this because you've already mentioned your AI is on the front of your mind, but you read the articles and what is there? I mean, there's a lot of corollaries. There always has been between young lawyers and bankers, especially lawyers going into the kind of the big law firms. What are there, 100 New York bankers that have just been hired and moved by OpenAI to basically solve, basic investment banking, vis-a-vis AI. Right. And the same thing's happening in the legal world. So teaching students not only how to use it, but also we don't want our students to get out, to your point, Dean, about being really, really focused on it's their money they're spending to get this education, and don't screw it up by giving them something that isn't worthy of their time and effort and money.
Yeah,
right.
And you get out and suddenly, all these first-year lawyer jobs are gone because they're not gone. They've just shifted to something else.
Yeah, right.
But maybe the conventional hey, I need somebody to do a document review in the corporate world. I did plenty of that. And, I need somebody to read through during this transaction, these 10,000 leases or whatever it is. Pretty sure all that's going to disappear. That will be an AI, and there'll be one person checking. But that doesn't mean that somebody with a smart brain between their ears doesn't have a role to play somewhere.
Sure.
And so it's shifting that in the higher education world to give the skills to these kids to go out and not be scared of a changing world.
And I will add, it's particularly important for us as an institution who we know that a lot of our students will go out and hang a shingle. And the large firms, some go to large firms, a lot go into the DA's office and things like that. But if you're hanging out a shingle, you need good mentorship, you need good support, you need good access. And if you're doing things wrong as a sole proprietor or as a sole practitioner, I'm a BA professor at heart, sole proprietor, as a sole practitioner, it's all the more daunting for you and all the more damaging if you mess up.
Sure.
And so we have to have a practice-ready set of students who can go out there and take on the world.
And AI will make them more efficient.
Yeah, I remember when students started practicing law, when cell phones came in. They had their laptop and they had their cell phone, and they're living with their mom and dad after 3 years of college. 3 years of law school, because they were away for college and came back to St. Mary's in Dallas and now here. And their law firm is their bedroom, because you don't need the space anymore. And, they would meet with clients at Starbucks or places like that, but they have a whole law firm with a laptop and a cell phone, and they go.
Talk a little bit, I know school just started an online program, and you talk about access as being the mission of the school. How has that impacted the school, and how do you see that maybe making a bigger impact going forward?
Yeah, it's interesting. When we were in COVID, and I started in the midst of COVID, my prior leadership, and I remember thinking, once we saw that we could do it online, and we had pivoted just like the rest of the world had to pivot to do their different jobs, we had to pivot. 70, 80, near 80-year-old professors had to learn how to teach online. Now, that's not an easy task to do. So it's like, hit the button, the IT professor's there the IT person will be there with you. But once we figured it out, especially because I was in Columbus, Ohio, and it's very cold during the winter, and I thought, for schools of access and opportunity of the type that I have always worked at, who's going to want to, now, St. Mary's, at about the time that COVID hit, St. Mary's got dispensation, if you will, from the American Bar Association, our accrediting body, to offer a fully online JD degree. And they were the first school to get that. And so we're going into COVID, and I'm seeing how well that this can work. And I'm thinking, why is somebody in downtown Columbus going to want to come over after a full day of work and travel in the snow below 0 degree weather and attend class 4 nights a week, when they can sit in their office or they can sit in their home and attend law school? Because I can see that these programs are going to start. You can be in Connecticut and go to an online school in California, or you can be in New York and be one of our students. So we're still learning a lot about this, but we did start an online program a couple of years ago. Luckily, I still have a lot of relationships with the people at St. Mary's, including the ones who started that. And the dean and I are good friends, because she started her deanship there, Patty Roberts, at the same time I started at Kaplan. One of the things that's interesting is we're finding out that now that we can do some data and gathering and things, is that about 75%, if I'm remembering right, of online students live within 50 miles of the school they attend. So it is the fact that you are, as us here in Houston, able to pull somebody from Miami, able to pull somebody from Nebraska, able to pull somebody from New York. But a lot of them are just people who are here in Harris County who cannot go downtown to law school. So I think, again, staying with the mission of service and access and opportunity, the online program for us allows us to reach more people who, even though we're close, still can't make it. And we had an enormous amount of applications, as do all of these programs. So in the early years, like many things in the early years, you can take the cream of the crop as students. We have not yet had a cohort come out, no school has, that has sat for the bar. So we're going to see how those totally online programs happen as they sit for the bar. But what we did in COVID to teach online has completely changed. Just turning on the Zoom and teaching as if you were in the classroom is gone. The best practices today involve hybrid classes with asynchronous learning and synchronous learning, and maybe some residency time, right? So our program requires them to come and stay a week in Houston. And then some courses are completely online, asynchronous, recordings of classes, lots of things to do in between, professors checking, holding office hours, and some courses are more a lecture online, and then the other half you're doing a lot of different projects and things like that. So we're still learning, and part of the AI vice president role that I envision would be to take over our online program.
Got it. Well, you spoke about students online and within a 50-mile radius. I can vouch for that. I just drove 2 miles to get here today in Houston traffic. I mean, it was
Who wants to mess with
right?
it?
I mean, so Billy, when you think about what you're trying to accomplish in University Lands, what does success look like for the organization from your vision and your point of view?
We've already talked about what this organization is, how we do have a lot of traditional side to it. We have a lot of cutting edge stuff as well. And frankly, we're just managing an asset that is, even though it's a static piece of land, it's very dynamic. And I would classify success for us, one, go to our mission. And our mission is not the same as the University of Texas system. It's not the same as a institution, UT Austin or MD Anderson. Our mission it's about generating revenue. It's about protecting the land resource in UT, and it's about doing it all in a sustainable and sort of environmentally friendly way. Success for me is when everybody in the organization and the decisions that we make are taking those three components into their thinking, and that I tell people all the time, sometimes they all line up, and it's a really easy decision, and we've got success. And a lot of times they don't. We can make a whole lot of money on something that is a train wreck for the environment, for the land. UT might be on the front page of the newspaper because of it, or whatever it is. I typically give the example of nuclear waste. It's got to go somewhere. Somebody might pay me a whole lot of money to put it out in a hole in West Texas. It might actually be a success if I can sell the message that, well, this has to go somewhere, and we've got a piece of land that's 50 miles from the closest house and whatever. But it could also be a total train wreck.
Right.
And then on the other component of that is the revenue side of it, which for the most part we are a revenue focused company. And frankly, it's a beautiful, amazing asset that is, I very simply put, it's a world-class asset. 100 people or less can manage something that generates cash in the close to $2 billion a year, and that's not something you see very often. But it's not all about the revenue. We talked a little bit about the traditional side of things. I mean, we have a sustainability obligation to that land, and one of the great lessons you learn working for a place like King Ranch, who is a 8th generation family managing a piece of land that they've learned the right way and the wrong way and every way in between, that if you don't focus on putting inputs back into that land and inputs meaning primarily cost, you've got to put dollars back in the land if you want it to keep on producing. And so sometimes we're spending money and we're not making anything off of it, except for the idea that maybe in the future we did the right thing. It's going to protect the environment or the environmental nature of it. It's going to be good for UT. And so long term, what success looks like for us is that we are making decisions that 4 years from now, somebody is critiquing us and they're saying, man, those guys were way smarter than we give them credit for. I've read so many documents in my time as a lawyer and as a business guy. We're like, this person's an idiot. What were they doing?
I I read a few of those documents.
Yeah, and I mean, the running joke of like, there must have been pictures, like, how did somebody sign this document? It's so one-sided. So I think about that a lot. Like, our posterity, almost everything we do is public. It's going to be in the record books of the counties that we're in. And success for us is somebody way past my lifetime going, man, that was a good decision. Look at the amount of money that one decision made, and it could have gone sideways, or they could have put something in there that was ridiculous, and so we won't know. I guess we won't know for a long time if we're being judged that way.
Okay, good answer. Dean,
Thanks.
What about for you? What does success look like as you lead an organization like
So
South Texas?
I come from a migrant farm worker background. My mom had 13 brothers and sisters. My dad had 17 brothers and sisters. I have 87 first cousins. My dad went to the 3rd grade. My mom went to the 6th grade. So everything I've done past 6th grade has just been an entirely different world for them. But they always supported me. They always understood the educational part was an important part. And it is the transformation that the education, for me at least, provided for me that I want to pass on to others. I was very lucky. In 1999 to 2000, I was a White House Fellow when I'm 19. You don't know much about the White House Fellow program. It was started under the Johnson administration to have leaders that were in mid-career come and hold high positions in government, and you would have a person that you would be your principal, and you'd kind of go there and then take back what you learned from wherever you came. So I was very fortunate. I worked for Maria Traveste, who was the highest ranking Latina or Latino in the Clinton White House, and I worked in the West Wing with her. And I remember one day I was waiting. My office was not in the West Wing, it was in the EOV, but I was in the West Wing all the time. And I was waiting for Maria to come back from something. She was Deputy White House Chief of Staff and Assistant to the President. And I was sitting there, and I just remember that year thinking, this will not happen again. Like, I will not perennially had the opportunity to walk into the White House and walk out. And every day was a countdown, right? And I just thought, here's this little Chicano kid from Lubbock, Texas, who didn't have grandparents that went to school or college or anything like that, who came from a migrant farm worker background. But then seeing at the heights of government, how government works and taking that back, I was at St. Mary's at the time. I think that really instilled in me, which I already had a burning desire to be an educator, but to give back and pay forward everything that had been given to me. Because I'm very, very fortunate that my parents didn't get as far as I got. And I was very fortunate to I got my bachelor's and master's at Stanford and then went on to Harvard Law School. I always tell everybody there was a woman 2 years ahead of me named Michelle, and the guy 1 year behind me named Barack, and I never got to know either of them, so I'm trying to find my way in the world. But at any rate, they asked me for my investiture, what is the theme that you want? And I have a deep heart for civil rights, and I thought I was going to work for the Mexican American Legal Defense Educational Fund. That's why I went to law school. And I became a law professor instead, and have never regretted it, and have always worked hard to provide those same opportunities to me that were provided to me to provide them for others. So I picked the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Martin Luther King say, right? And I think our job as educators is to be there and stand on the shoulders of those giants that came before us and continue to bend that arc towards justice by producing students who will graduate from law school and go pursue justice and be soldiers for justice in whatever way, shape, or form or mechanism best works for them. I am a raging liberal, but I want my students to go out there and be good, steadfast Republicans, and let's have a good argument, and let's have a good fight, and let's have an ethical, competent lawyer base that we produce that does good for society. That is what is success for South Texas College of Law.
Amen. That is great. So I just want to express deep gratitude for both of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come share your thoughts and views and with this audience and with the audience who will see the recording. As we wrap up, I want to ask kind of two final questions because you're both busy. So real quick, what do you do to kind of just rest and recharge? What's kind of your favorite vacation, or just what do you do for that?
Well, as a good Democrat, I sat and watched TV all night long yesterday and just reveled in that. But other than that, I haven't been as good because we've been in transition and the like. I do like to go to the gym and just kind of, blow it out and not think about anything and be in my own zone. I do have 3 sons. I'm a single dad, and they are now 21, 20, and 16. So the older 2 don't need me as much, but the 16-year-old needs me a lot. So I just spend a lot of time with him.
Gotcha. Billy?
Well, I mean, I absolutely love being with my family. I like taking walks with my wife. I like watching my kids play sports, family dinners. That's relaxing. They'll all tell you I actually can relax driving. It's kind of crazy. Maybe not driving in the city, but I drove back from Austin today. I literally showed up at 4 p.m. before this, and that 2.5 hours is pretty head clearing for me. I can turn the phone off if I need to. I can listen to books. I can get on the phone. I talked with a very close friend for an hour and a half who's got some medical things going on. The intersection of the work that I do in the land. I love being outside. I'm a quail hunter. Season started last week. I won't hunt until it gets a little bit colder, but that's probably the happy place for me, is sitting in the back of a quail truck and watching dogs scour the land and look for cubbies. It's a special thing, and just that clears your head.
Very good. All right, so last question. It's more of a food question. Billy, you prefer Tex-Mex or barbecue?
That's easy. I'm Mexican food all day long. Tex-Mex, Mexican.
Reynaldo Valencia
too in my heart.
Valencia. Keith.
No.
Mexican. Okay. Somehow I knew you were going to say that. But,
You could have predicted, right?
Yeah. Well, again,
What's
thanks to
What's
you.
yours?
Oh gosh, see, I need
We're
to
ready for that?
No, it is Tex-Mex. It's Tex-Mex, and as I've said before, because I gauge it by when I'm gone and I'm out of town or out of state, what's the first thing I want?
What's the Tex-Mex joint in Houston?
The go-tos, Molinas.
Yes, mine too.
Or Pico's margaritas.
Let's see, we've got to teach him.
We do.
You're still.
What are you doing
learning
after
all
this, Dean? What are you doing?
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome.
For hosting us. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
That's it for this episode of Building Texas Business. Don't forget to check out the show notes at boyermiller.com/podcast for insights and resources from today's conversation. Learn more about how Boyer Miller can help your business grow at boyermiller.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.